This is my 11th Christmas on Etsy. I have laughed, I have cried, I have had every emotion in between. It's been a real roller coaster ride, with twists and turns that at times had me hanging on to the edge of my seat. I almost quit like 5 times. At one point, I was able to go full-time as an Etsy seller. I was very proud of myself. But then circumstances changed, and I had to turn around and go get a job again. Thankfully, I kept at it, and here I am, a full-time Etsy seller for more than 7 years. What does this have to do with you? Well, during my more than a decade on Etsy, I have learned a few lessons, let's call them hard knock lessons, that I can impart to you to hopefully make your journey a little bit easier. Today, I'm going to tell you 3 things that help me outlast my competitors so that I'm still here today, not just existing, but thriving. My intention today is to give you hope. Hope that it will not always be so hard. Hope that your struggles and your tears will be worth it. Hope that you will get through this. Hope that Etsy can be your full-time income that gives you freedom to be home and to be present with your family. Make sure that you stay to the very end. You do not want to miss an important announcement. Welcome to Cha-Ching. My name is Terry. I'll be your tour guide through the Etsy maze and your partner in crime, all things small business. Now let's get started. First, I want to start by answering a question that I think I'll get asked. Isn't Etsy different than when you first started? Yes, but not in the way that you think. There are naysayers out there that would decline to follow this advice because Etsy is different now. And what applied back then doesn't apply now. To that I would say, everything changes. Not only does Etsy change, our economy changes, society changes, you change, your business changes, and I could go on and on. By virtue, Etsy must change to be relevant for its sellers and customers. We are all dealing with changes, and Etsy is no different. Would I say that I have loved every change that Etsy has made? Absolutely not. But looking back, I can see why they made a lot of those changes. This leads me into your first lesson on how you can outlast your competitors. Lesson number 1 is go with the flow. When Etsy announced the push for free shipping over $35, everyone was in an uproar, and I was right there with them. But I knew something that most sellers don't think about. When Etsy does something like this, they put a ton of planning and research behind it. Research and planning that I cannot afford to do, and results that I cannot see. So I increased my prices and I went with it. A few years later, and here we are. Etsy was right, again. Customers love the free shipping option, and sellers love having an average order value of over $35. My own average order value did increase, and it wasn't because I raised my prices a little bit. It was because Etsy knew what they were doing. You see, this isn't an isolated event. From fee increases to policy changes to, the dreaded account reserves. I have a little more trust that Etsy knows what they're doing and has a plan before they make these big changes. As I start my new print-on-demand shop, I know that Etsy is going to either suspend my shop or put a reserve on that account. Do I get mad and quit? No. I prepare. And that is the first way that you can go with the flow. It should be a part of any new Etsy seller's business plan to prepare for that reserve and that possible account suspension. These suspensions are scary, and these reserves hit our pockets. But Etsy is doing what they can to protect their customers from scammers. And where would we be if they let the scammers just run rampant? It would hurt us all. So first, mentally prepare, and then financially prepare. Don't start a shop without reserves of your own. If you get hit with a reserve, you will be the one covering the print-on-demand fees before the order can even be made and shipped out. So whether you are handmade or print-on-demand, make sure that you have a reserve of your own to combat this eventuality. The second way to go along with the flow is to just stop and take a breath when Etsy makes one of these big scary changes. In over a decade, I have seen tons of fee increases. Do I love them? No. But here's the truth. When Etsy refunds your customer out of their pocket because you were not in the wrong, that money has to come from somewhere. And don't we want them to keep our customer happy? Yes, we do. Heck, I've even gotten to the point where I just refund the customer, even when I know that they are in the wrong. Because the customer is always right, even when the customer is wrong. Etsy knows this. Believe me when I tell you that I know it can be very hard as a new shop. But the more you grow, the more you realize you just need to work this into your pricing. In the future, Etsy will still have more fee increases, but it behooves us all to treat this like a business. Those fee increases go into customer satisfaction and advertising. Those are all things that help us as sellers. So take a deep breath, raise your prices a tiny bit, and move on. You have more real issues to concern yourself with, so don't get caught up in the Etsy seller drama. Lesson 2 is follow the rules. I had a thriving tutu business right out of the gate. I loved making dresses for little girls. I made birthday outfits and wedding wear and, like flower girl dresses and stuff. And I made adorable Halloween costumes. Halloween was my best time of the year. I made beautiful princess dresses. Disney princess dresses. What's wrong with this picture? You got it. It's copyright and trademark infringement. In the early days, I was one of those sellers who had heard that you could legally make those types of items as long as it was on a customer by customer basis, like to order. I literally thought it wasn't illegal under those circumstances. I must be right after all, since there were so many Disney items all over Etsy. Wrong. I got my first copyright strike on a Grinch tutu, and it scared me to death. I immediately started researching copyright and trademark infringement, but not before I went in and took every mention of Disney or any other copyright infringed item that I had out of my shop. Now, I was lucky because like a lot of my princess dresses, like let's say I had the Belle dress, I could just rename it Yellow Princess Dress or whatever. I don't even remember what I named it. I might have named it Golden something, but I can't remember. But those dresses did not closely resemble the actual Disney characters, so I was able to get away with just making sure I cleaned up my tags and titles and things. But I had other items like a Frozen Elsa tutu birthday set that literally had her picture right on the front of the shirt that went with the tutu. And I had a Stitch tutu that I had to completely take out. I had Peppa the Pig tutu that I had to take out. I did have a Candyland dress, but I was able to name it Candy Shop Tutu, and it was fine. So why am I telling you this very embarrassing story? Because I want you to understand that copyright and trademark infringement is a very serious issue. It's not just that you can get hit from the copyright or trademark holder. This is a crime that can cause you to have all of your inventory and equipment confiscated, and you will not get it back. My own journey with Etsy could have ended right there. There are no other points to this. Just follow the rules. Lesson 3 is get great at the pivot. After more than 5 years of doing the tutus, I started to realize that my earning potential was pretty capped by what I could produce on my own. I sat down and I took a long look at any changes that I could make, but in the end, I had to make the decision to just completely pivot. I had recently married and welcomed a new husband and 5 bonus children into the house, so things were definitely changing. With very shaky hands, I clicked close my shop, and I pivoted to an entirely new store with different items. In the life of any Etsy seller, there might come a time to consider pivoting. The market is always changing. I'm not talking about saturation. Tutus were very saturated, but I worked very hard on my craft and I was above that saturation, especially with 5 years under my belt for that shop. With focus and determination, saturation will not matter in the long run. You just have to do the hard work of climbing above your competition. I'm actually talking about the social and economic changes. Take 2020 for instance. That not only changed so many shops, but it changed Etsy as a whole. So many of you are sitting on shops with no sales and wondering what to do. Well, here are a few things to consider before doing anything too drastic. Number 1, have you done all of your research? Are your tags, titles, and descriptions absolute perfection? Dost thou think I jest? Nay, nay, I jest not. You cannot just guess at these things. Your listings need to be on point to climb above your competition. Use a tool like Everbee or eRank to see how keywords rank. I'll leave links in the description below. The second thing to consider before making a drastic change is that time is the great teller of truth. Unfortunately, your listings can be 100% on point and just not get picked up by the Etsy algorithm. This is why you consider the next point. The third thing to consider is, have you been listing? If you have been listing for like 3 months nonstop and you still don't have any sales, it might be time to consider a pivot. How many listings should you list? Well, if you're new at this, as many as you can possibly list. This should be your most important task. If you're print on demand, I would say at least 5 a day. If you're handmade, I would say maybe 5 a week. In one of my shops, I decided to add print on demand phone cases. I decided I was going to add 100 of them in total before I moved on. For a while, nothing. I was literally sick of phone cases, but then it started to happen. At first, it was just 1 or 2 sales here or there, but as Q4 approached, that rose to several a week. Now, as I'm recording this, we're at the end of November and I'm selling more than 10 phone cases a day. This would not have happened had I not listed like a total fool. And at the time I was listing, I was not worried about the sales. I was just listing. And what's also very important there is I was doing my research. I researched the keywords before I did the listing. There are so many other lessons I have to share with you, but I can't do them all in one video. So if you like this video, hit the like button. And if you loved it, hit subscribe and the notification bell so that you will get notified whenever new videos are released. Before I go, I promised you a big announcement. I have so enjoyed conversing with you in the comments and hearing your stories, but I feel like it would be great for us to all have a place that we could come together, talk, and encourage one another. Etsy can be a lonely business, so I've started a Facebook group. I'll link it below. Leave a comment if you're going to go join the group, and I look forward to seeing you there. But for now, see you later, alligator.